Tech can be confusing. Whether it's the tech from today,
and we are calling it iPhone,
or even the tech from yesterday.
Hi, this is the Bell System's new touch-tone dialing.
Let's make it easy. This is the Bite-Sized Podcast. So today I want to talk about rotary phones. For many of us, especially those from the younger generations, the rotary phone is actually like a relic from the past. It's an antique, and my own Tide Pod eating generation might look at it and wonder like how on earth it ever connected to people. But that design, that rotary phone design is very iconic, and it actually has a very fascinating piece of engineering. So let's go ahead and dive in and explore how these phones actually worked. So at its heart, the rotary phone is all about sending signals, electrical pulses. When you wanted to make a call, you would stick your finger in that little rotary phone hole thing, the hole corresponding to the number or the digit you wanted to dial, and you would rotate that thing clockwise until you hit the finger stop. Then you'd let go, and the dial would spin all the way back around to its normal resting position. That spinning action is actually very crucial. As the dial returns, it interrupts the electrical circuit a specific number of times. So if you dialed 1, that would create 1 interruption or pulse. Dialing 2 would generate 2 pulses, and so on. So if you dialed a 9, the phone would send 9 distinct electrical pulses down the line. A little bit something like this. These pulses were then sent to a telephone exchange. It was a central hub that acted like a switchboard or operator for the network. Basically, the exchange would interpret the number of pulses for each digit and then use that information to route your call to the correct destination. So, I mean, it's actually a pretty ingenious system, especially when you consider the technology of the time. Essentially, you pick the number you want, spin the thing, and the amount of time it takes for that thing to spin back around is generally going to associate with the number. However, it wasn't the most efficient. Think about dialing a long number with a lot of 9s and 0s. It would take a while. Each digit required a full rotation in return, and you can't actually, you shouldn't speed up the rotation manually. That's why it was really very important for the newer push-button phones to take over. Push-button phones use tones instead of pulses, and they are much faster. If you dial 9 5 times on a rotary phone, that's going to be a very long process waiting for 9, which is the furthest number on there, to rotate all the way back around 5 times. For the quick of a push-button phone, that is so much better. Now, if we imagine dialing 9 5 times in a row, that's 45 individual pulses. At that standard rate of 10 pulses per second, it would take a whole 4.5 seconds just to transmit that number. In today's world of instant communication, that feels like a very long time. Now, in contrast, push-button phones use dual-tone multi-frequency signaling, or DTMF. When you press a button, it generates a combination of 2 specific tones. Each number has its own unique pair of tones, allowing the system to recognize it almost instantly. So, that same 9 is represented by a single, distinct sound. The fun part about it is that you can actually play little tunes based on what number you're playing on your phone. Here, I'm going to play the Charlie Brown theme for you. So this method is significantly more efficient. AT&T rolled out this tone system in 1963 in Pittsburgh and determined that it was actually about twice as efficient as the old pulse dialing that the rotary phones would use. This speed increase revolutionized phone communication, and it paved the way for faster call setup and automated systems. But actually, the story of communication technology obviously doesn't end there. In recent decades, we've witnessed an even more dramatic transformation with the rise of internet-based communication. So instead of relying on traditional phone lines and exchanges, we now have services like Skype. Well, actually, Skype is dying. But Skype is one of the very first in the online communication, like calling fields. And then of course there's others. We even have a service like Google Voice, which is actually very similar to the old push tone dialing system. It uses practically the same thing, and basically that uses what's called voice over internet protocol, and it gets a little bit more complicated, but fundamentally it's still a standard phone call, but it runs through servers. Regardless, this stuff is getting far more advanced, and instead of running through just a standard line that runs underground, this thing runs by sending ones and zeros very quickly across the internet, and you can actually talk to people all around the world very fast and very cheaply as well. Doing it this way is far more cost effective. You may recall just 10 years ago making a call using like a landline over to somebody like multiple cities away. That could get expensive, but the newer technologies that use the internet are all but free. These modern communication methods operate on a fundamentally different principle. Information is broken down into packets of data and sent across networks to servers. These servers act as central hubs, managing and routing the data to its destination. This packet-based system is incredibly flexible and efficient, enabling us to communicate in diverse ways. So it's actually really fascinating to trace this evolution. I actually made a video on YouTube a couple years ago, literally just about how rotary phones work and how you can make it work on a modern phone system. I don't know. There's something about it that just picking up a rotary phone and spinning the dial that is just so... I don't know. It's great. If you'd like to hear more about technology and the latest and greatest in tech news, stick around for the next podcast episode coming up. And that's your bite-sized breakdown for today. Catch you next time on the Bite Size Podcast.